You're tuned to the wavelength of your own beauty. It's your host, Ahmed Yunus, and this is The Study.
Gallery view, speaker view, gallery view. This is the first time we are having a conversation, correct?
This is correct.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Study. It's your host, the OG JD PhD with my Muhammad Salah jersey right here.
There you go, brother.
And my brother's wearing his Egyptian Soccer Federation shirt. Looking good. Actually, is that the jersey?
This is the practice jersey, brother. This is from
This guy's not playing,
yeah.
dog.
Yeah. I don't mess around, homie.
This guy's not playing. Okay. John, Abdou. The idea is as follows. We're basically the same age. We both grew up in Southern California. I am from a family that the cosmos happened to make Muslim, and you are from a family that the cosmos happened to make Christian. And we were thinking, we should compare notes. Like, we should totally compare notes and just like explore what it was like growing up in this space. So can we start with you just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, dog.
Love it. Oh, this is good. I already feel like I'm home, dog.
I'm home, man. I'm just gonna tell. I can say this. I can say this to you, Ahmed. When I first learned about you, right, from part one of it was from my wife, and then also your wife, because we used to sit in the same circle at my gym in Huntington Beach with our little kids, at the gym. And then we got to know, we were just chatting one day, and she's like, "Oh, you probably know my husband. You probably know my husband." I'm like, "Oh, for real? What's his name?" Ahmed. I go back to my wife Anna, and she's like, "Oh, that Ahmed Yunus. Yeah, I know Ahmed Yunus." And it's like, and I could say, and what I can say about finding out about you is it immediately made me feel more comfortable about myself.
Dog,
because I found someone else in the universe that's like, hey, that's me, right? In another, like an inch, my life moves an inch another way, that's me, right?
That's
and
right.
Like,
that's right. I love it, dog. I love it. So they call you Coach Abdou. Why is that?
Yeah. So for me, right now, my career is strangely enough went through the sport of water polo, right? So I started playing water polo in high school, got pretty good at it. I was playing basketball
high
too,
school?
like you.
Where'd you go to high school?
Temple City High School in near Pasadena, right? Like in the Pasadena area, Nice. So I was playing high school ball, right? High school basketball. Swam a little bit, then started getting into water polo, and then ideally I would have loved to just keep playing basketball, but water polo took me in this direction where I got good at it. Went to UC Irvine to play it, and then so that's. I mean, we could talk about a lot of things, but Wait,
I lost you, dog. I lost. Oh, wait. Okay, no, you're back. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Wait, but I lost that one. We could talk about a lot of things, but
I say we could talk about a lot of things, but in my career or life or whatever got me here, but from introducing the sport of water polo to me to now, right? If you just fast forwarded 30 years or 25 years, I work for USA Waterpolo right now, and I manage our Olympic teams, our men's and women's Olympic teams for USA. That's what I'm doing right now. But yeah,
dude, that is so awesome. Wait, women's teams.
Men's and women's, both men and women.
That's so brilliant. USA Water Polo. All right, shout out USA Water Polo, man. Now, do the USA Water Polo people know that water polo is a very Egyptian thing? It's a very like Nedi thing. Like being on a water polo team is a very like growing up in Egypt thing. So maybe subconsciously you're like connecting back to that. My assumption is growing up in Pasadena, going to Temple City. Water polo was a nice way for you to tell the Egyptian thunts that you're going to a UC, right? I mean, like, it's not a small thing, right? Because the rest of us are going to Cal States, and you're like, I thought I'm going to UC Irvine. And they're like, he's going to be a doctor. It's going to be so nice.
That's right. Because it's that doctor, muhandis, like, I got to be my father was an engineer or is an engineer, like you got to go that route. It was that route, but the rest of the boys and ladies went to Cal Poly Pomona, right? So it's like you had a
That's
choice,
right.
right? It's Cal Poly or this way.
Dog, do you know where I went?
Where?
Cal Poly Pomona, dog.
There you go, dude.
Hey, you just called it, dude.
There's no way. There's no way. You were there
called
with
it.
at least 300,000 other Egyptians, at Cal Poly.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you grow up around other Egyptians? Like, were your parents always exposing you to other Egyptians?
Yeah, for real. So for us, like the church was a big deal for us, right? That's like, so my parents, my family. So I was born in Egypt, right? So I was born, and then we went to Houston, right? So we went, and my older sister Susie was born in Egypt, right? And then about almost 3 years after I was born, we went to Houston, Texas, and then came to LA, and all of that was just embedded in the Coptic church, right? Like everything, like bro, like where we were the 4 days a week, right? The Tuesday night Bible study, the Friday night youth group, the Saturday night Vespers, the Sunday morning liturgy, all that, bro. So yeah, for sure. All in
and those events were in Arabic or were in English or but like both?
Both. Yeah.
So you were exposed to Arabic as a language early on?
Early, but then I dropped that real fast. It was hard, right? To keep. I didn't do a good job of keeping up, but very early on we were exposed. And, even in Houston, right, when we got there, just anything in the church was in Arabic, Coptic, right, as we would sing in the language of in the Coptic language, and so learned all that. So it was almost like trilingual early on, right, with those. Yeah, man.
Bro, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah,
okay, my story is exactly the same, dog. I was born in Egypt.
Yeah.
We came here. I was like 3.
Yeah.
My mom and dad. My mom was originally going to do a PhD in Boston, and she showed up, and it was too cold, so she got a transfer to USC. And she and my mom and dad are like among the star initial graduates of physical therapy at Cairo University.
Oh,
so
wow.
my mom is kind of like the godmother of PT in Egypt, and my dad is like OG. I think he's in the first graduating class or the second of physical therapy at Cairo University. So their homies from Egypt are all physical therapists.
Wow.
First, yeah, because that's your first identity, right? Like for them, the profession was the first identity, the reason you came here. So from the get, I was exposed to Egyptian Christians, not only Egyptian Coptics, but Egyptian Catholics as well.
From
the beginning. Why? Because they were in the physical therapy like gang. We had a very similar upbringing. Like we were at the mosque every Sunday. The mosque that we grew up in, it's called the Islamic Center of Southern California. Its leaders, by happenstance, were also Egyptians. And at the time that I was growing up, the majority of the community was Egyptian. Today, the majority of the community in that mosque is from Bangladesh. So you can see like the liquidity of Muslim identity, how like it shifts through time. And I really never appreciated as a kid. I mean, I did a little bit. The deep sense of grievance among Egyptian Christians about discrimination back home, about you're not slated for every promotion, you're not slated to be the department chair, you're not slated to be the head of state, you're not slated, you know what I mean? And then they do the like, I'm not racist, my gardener's a Mexican, I'm not racist, Boutros Ghali was, Boutros Ghali was this, or Boutros Ghali was that. You got right. I got one dog that I keep through the year. My blacks here, in the first row. Where's my black? You know that guy? He ruined his life. Trump ruined his life. We should say that today, actually, we should say this. Today is October 1st. I know that you've just come running from work, but I should inform you that President Trump has gone into quarantine, likely as the result of a positive COVID test. Likely he got it from Hope Hicks, and we wish them all well, and we never wish anyone any ill will. And masks really help, dog. Masks really help. You might want to try masks. POTUS might try them. Okay. Come into this space. And then in the Muslim space, the Muslim Brotherhood, like vibe began to take over to a certain extent. And that really does culminate in the kind of Egyptian revolution process with Mubarak and then Morsi and then Sisi. That, I think, caused, now my dad's generation, they'll tell you, of course not, absolutely not, everything is great, we are all love one time. I think that caused a huge sense of difference between Egyptian Muslims and Egyptian Christians, because for many Egyptian Christians, the presence of the Muslim Brotherhood was in a big way an existential question, because they're seen as linked up with all these crazy ass terrorists who are eventually going to make their way into the social process. And for the Egyptian Muslims who are in Southern California, they're kind of like, the Brotherhood's whack, but we got to give them a chance so they can fuck it up, and then we can move on to the next form of government. And the Egyptian Christians are like, well, you know, I mean, by the time we move on, dog, like some of us are not going to be here. Like the churches are going to get burned down and this shit's going to be real. So I, as a kid, I never, ever felt a distinction between my Muslimness and the Christianness of the Egyptians I was growing up with until I began to kind of form an identity around Islam. And then I don't know what happened. I'm not totally sure what happened. Did you have a similar vibe? Did you not have a similar vibe? Were you guys really kind of, Yeah. You know, not only is this our first conversation, this may be one of the first conversations I've had with a Muslim Egyptian really diving into the perception that you had, and you know the framework of how you view other Egyptians, right? The non-Islams. So I did have something similar. There was a lot in Egyptian Christians where there is this I want to say a sense of being a victim, right? And the persecution that you talk about and the discrimination that you talk about, it's real. It's very real. It's very real. But it's very real, and we can go into all of it. And even in our soccer jerseys, how many Christian Egyptians are on the national team for USA or for Egyptian Soccer Federation? طبعا.
Zero,
it's discrimination.
Right? Yeah, it's there.
Is it really zero?
It's zero, brother.
مفيش ولا واحد مسيحي بيلعب كورة. Are you kidding me?
مفيش واحد.
Yeah,
and
that's
not
horrible.
even
That's horrible.
And not even anywhere in the pipeline either, right? Like you know, U23, U20, blah blah. You keep going down. Right?
Intentional caste system.
It's completely intentional. And what's difficult maybe for us, right, leaving the country at age 3 and then coming here, right, is that I now learn much of this, right, in your upbringing from the eyes and the experiences of your parents, right, or from my parents, right, and so it becomes very skewed. Right. And so my parents would say, maybe different than your parents would say, we moved to USA to leave this discrimination and the oppression that we were feeling for our religious beliefs in Egypt. That's why we came to USA, for religious freedom, you know? And I didn't really understand that at first, right? But it takes years to start figuring it out. But it comes with a sense of, and I'm sure you experience this too in times you've gone back to Egypt as an adult, right? That Egypt it's an intentional caste system, and race is very prevalent, and every distinguisher is prevalent.
Speak on it, dog. Speak on it, dog. Speak on it, dog. That's the truth.
Yeah. And I didn't realize this. So we moved, think about this dynamic, brother. We moved to the States. I'm Egyptian, but the way I look and the way I've been this whole life, people don't know the difference between Egyptian man,
Mexican, man, whatever. Nobody Mexican. Knows nothing.
Right. We're just ambiguous, right? So inevitably, we just fall into the line of colored, right? So we're colored. And so I grew up my whole life with the lens of being a colored man in America, right? Being a black man in America, being a brown man in America, being all these. So can you imagine, man, then you go back to Egypt. I go back to Egypt when I'm 10 years old, right? And I'm sure I'm curious your experience with this, right? And we're sitting at a restaurant, and the very dark Egyptian or the Sudanese or the Ethiopian waiter is serving us, and my uncles and aunts are like, El Berberi da, shuf el Berberi, and then they start laughing and like they look at this guy and go. And I'm saying, I'm like, that's what they say about me back home.
Wait, hold up, dog. Wait, hold up. Wait, you misunderstood. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
are you kidding me, dog? Are you kidding, homie? Before 9/11, the Southern California Egyptian community was in a war with me for identifying as Black or African or anything other. Are you kidding me, dog? Dog, the Egyptian Muslims, they rise to the level of like the Lebanese calling themselves Phoenician and shit. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? My dad tells the story of having two grandfathers, one of Sudanese descent and one of Turkish descent. And in his time, everybody would kind of take what the Sudanese grandfather says with a grain of salt, but what the Turkish grandfather said, everybody executed immediately.
Wow.
Even
deeply rooted.
Dog, are you kidding me?
Deeply rooted, bro.
We're out here jumping on all these South Asians about like putting Fair and Lovely on their skin. I don't know a single Egyptian woman my mom's age that's still got her curls. Not one. Not one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
So that internalizing of the I had a very similar experience, dog. I went to elementary school here in Downey. Well, I'm not in Downey right now, but spiritually, I'm always in Downey. I went to elementary school in Downey, and then I went to middle school in Egypt.
Oh, yeah.
Learned Arabic as a second language. Got my ass handed to me on the playground every day. Got bullied. All of a sudden, I went from like the dopest kid in 5th grade to the guy that's getting his ass handed to him every single day. And I'm trying to learn the language. My mom's got like tutors and shit coming at night so we can like game the system. And then I'm in middle school. You got to take like religion. You got to take Arabic. You got to take Arabic grammar. But it's a British school. Come in, bro. The first thing we land in Egypt. My mom sets up all these interviews to get into some stupid ass 6th grade, bro. I'm coming out of Spencer V. Williams. I remember, like in 4th grade, they sent my ass home for a Bart Simpson shirt that said "Underachiever" and proud of it. You know what I'm saying?
I'm not gonna lie. I got Bart Simpson sweatpants that said the same thing. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you. Yeah.
I walk into the first British school. And I basically I'm an American kid. I put one like regla ala regla, like I put one foot on a knee, and the lady goes, "Thank you for coming to the interview." It hasn't even started, and I'm looking at my mom like, did she just say that shit in the English I know? Because I'm pretty sure she just said this shit is over. And she's just like, "Thank you for coming to the خلاص ما ينفعش. That ما ينفعش. There's no way."
Wow.
Why isn't he gonna work out? Because he needs to take his foot down. He has no respect. So you come into this British world.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden, dog, this American Egyptian kid is watching the OG Egyptians apply British standards as though they are from God. Right? They live in a neoliberal world, dog. Like I left here in 91. I landed 84, 83. Microwaves and shit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, dog. Yeah, you went back. You went back, dude. You went back. Yeah.
So then you show up and you're like Americani, Farfour, whatever.
For sure.
And then I made the mistake of saying some shit like, "Hey man, salam alaikum." And everybody looks at me like, "Who the what? What are you, like some sort of extremist Muslim or some shit? What do you mean salam alaikum? What's wrong with hi or bye or whatever?" Yeah. And so all of a sudden we get to Egypt and I'm like, oh shit, man. And my parents are very progressive people. They never forced a kid to pray. They never, nothing.
Really?
At nothing. They're very progressive people, very faithful people, very progressive people. And I'm in Egypt, dog. And I'm like, wow, these people think I'm like some sort of like crazy, like Muslim guy. But we were doing all that because, like, well, hold up, dog. Like, do you guys not go to the mosque on Sunday? And
right, what are you doing?
And they're just like, go to the mosque. Homie, I've never been to a mosque in my life. Go to the mosque like on Friday with my like dad and I pray the whatever and I'm out in 20 minutes. Go to the mosque on Sunday, study the Quran. Wow. They're just like, what the fuck are you talking about? So then all of a sudden I realized like, oh shit, we kind of got played, dog.
Yeah.
we kind of got played. Like we were all up in here like halaqah this and halaqah that, and let's study the whatever 40 of Imam Nawawi and shit. And then you get to Egypt and they're just like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, dog? It makes no sense. Then my parents moved to Saudi Arabia. I did my first year of high school in Saudi Arabia.
No way.
That's where dog. And that's where I saw the like,
yeah, that's everything.
That's where I began. That's where I began to have ideas about reform. That's where I began to study like, okay, wait a minute, something's going on here. And I'm still in 9th grade. And I just felt like, nah. When we came back, then that kind of like American Muslim identity became like my ship, my vehicle for career, for identity, for everything. Because when we were growing up, people would kind of downplay cultural identity and play up religious identity, not necessarily religious religiosity, but religious like secular religious.
Correct. You just hit the nail on the head, right? When we grew up the exact same way, it was cultural identity. I'm like, aren't we Egyptian? Aren't we Egyptian? It's like, no, you're not Egyptian. You're not Egyptian. You're Orthodox, right? You're an Orthodox. And they now got played up, and this is what you are. And Egypt is this, and Orthodoxy is that. I'm wildly curious now of this immigration story, the immigration story of Ahmed Yunus, right? You're born in Egypt.
Yeah.
Come to the States for elementary school. You go to junior high. In what part of Egypt was that British school in?
In Fiddu'i. It's in Cairo, in Muhandisin, Fiddu'i. It's called Manor House. Manor House it has a branch in Masr Gidi. Like it's one of the staple. Bro, do you want to know how small Egypt is? My wife's sister got married a few years ago to a kid who had the same math teacher that I did at Manor House.
No way. That's insane.
They just randomly met each other.
But people don't know, when you say Egypt, you know how small Egypt is. There may be someone listening out there who doesn't know that there's 90 million people that live in the country, right? And they think it's a village, but that's what it's like. So you go to there, and then
then I go to Saudi.
Right.
And in Saudi, they're teaching my mom's work on the men's side of the university. My mom can't teach her own textbooks to her own student, like the whole thing. We stay there for one academic year. Out. We come back to Southern California. I go to high school with the kids I went to elementary school with.
At Downey.
In Downey, homie. The house is a block and a half from the fence of the high school.
Yeah.
My dad had this old Oldsmobile whoopty that me and my brother like would just rock to school. We used to call it the Pimp Mobile. Yeah. And our life was like I played high school football 1 year. That was a disaster. And then it was just a varsity basketball. Our life was varsity basketball in its entirety. Yeah. So the process of like cultural acquisition, or the process of like, who am I? What is this culture? Then you're like, you find yourself tripping when you have kids.
Yeah.
So today, my daughter Layla, who's 5, came home from her grandma's house to say goodbye to her great grandma because her great grandma's going back to Egypt. And she comes home and she's just like Maya, bro, like tears and tears and tears. Yeah. And I'm sitting there for the first time looking at this new generation beginning to like reconcile with the shit that I had to reconcile with and my mom had to reconcile with. And so that kind of like immigrant story really comes in deep. Like people will see, oh, Ahmed Yunus, he's doing all this Islam shit and he's, this and that Islam and that and this Islam. But I would say actually at 41, I think I've come much closer to that like median Egyptian identity than I have to some sort of like super duper duper Muslim. I think that concept has lost its power, I think, at the grassroots of the community. Yeah, and that makes sense. What were your folks doing back in? What prompted the move back to the Middle East? The grants. The government gives you a grant to study. You get a BASA. And part of the agreement for the grant is you have to teach at an Egyptian public university for 3 years. Oh. So they went back to teach. They went back to fulfill their grant. to fulfill the grant. So then, we had to roll with it.
Yeah.
But when you come back, you're still you, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like my friends today on Facebook are the people I went to elementary school with.
Right. Right.
So you come back, you've seen this whole world. And then you're like baked right back into that, like the quad, a homecoming, winter formal. Okay, so this dude has a girlfriend. I'm not really allowed to have a girlfriend.
Right.
So what am I going to do? My options are I could take like bint to whoever, and we could pretend like it's a secular thing, or I can, take the chica that I really want to go to school, the dance with.
Of course,
you know what I mean? Like all that, like you start dealing with all that, and it's crazy.
Yeah, but your parents sound like your parents are progressive. We in the undertone of all this is the same experience, right? Is like going to high school. You say the quad winter formal. I was named king of the winter formal my senior year in high school. I didn't even go, brother. I didn't even go because
that's how much of a G you were, dog.
I wasn't allowed to go. I was allowed to go.
Oh my God! No, you're joking.
We went to church on Saturday. I swear to God, man, this is a real story. Like we had church on Saturday night. Winter formal Saturday night in the week. I didn't go. So
they were just like you're going to church. Formal what? Yeah, dog. Are you serious?
Informal that dance, like you can't.
Are you wait, dog? I can't believe you're saying this to me right now. I was on the homecoming court.
I bet you were.
And then everybody comes out. No, believe me, it was like it was a godsend. And then everybody comes like in a convertible car, like around with their date around like. You sit on the convertible, you go around the track
I know the deal.
Of the football.
Yeah.
My mom was on the car next to me.
For real. For real.
Wallahi, of course. Because what am I going to do, dog? I'm going to take like Juliet. Yeah. And homies from high school will still talk shit to me today.
I bet, dude. I bet.
Today. Oh, bro, remember when you picked up that girl from the corner, bro, because you couldn't tell your mom and dad that you whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Wow. Same thing, dog.
Let me tell you, you're on the homecoming court. You take your mom's in the convertible with you on the track. How did everybody else take that? Were people like, "That's so cute"? Ahmed brought his mom to homecoming. You know what I mean? This thing, or was it like, "Hey, who's this chump?" Right? Like, what's he doing?
Homie, you know how it is, homie. You're always code switching. You're always code switching. Right? So it's like. Mama's here. Oh my God, it's so cute. His mama's here. Then you're like, Mama, go home. Mama's home. Now, whatever, Nicole or whoever comes out from the back. And then and everybody's like, oh, Nicole, oh my God, you're so back into it, right? Like literally, you're just always code switching, dog. Like it's crazy that when we were young, people like young people accommodated for each other's parents' issues. You know what I mean? Like there was always this sense that like we were together and our parents were like in the monitoring space and we were always like trying to navigate, you know what I'm saying? Like, we were never in the house. We were always in some garage with the children, the sons of my mom and dad's friends.
Of course.
We go from Tante Camelia's house to Tante whoever's house to Tante whoever's house to Tante whoever's house. And we're in the garage, whoever's smoking their cig, whoever's hitting their whatever, they're drinking their whatever. And then Tante comes, she brings some mahshi, you hide the shit, you bring it back out.
And just add basketball, and we had the same upbringing.
It's the same thing, dog. I mean? We're going to go play a pickup game. We're going to come back.
Yeah.
So like there was always this sense that I think the Muslim thing didn't really work. Because at the end of the day, we were still only trusted with other Egyptians. Yeah.
It was the only place you could be. It was the only place that made sense to them and was allowed, really. And allowed really? out of fear. Was it out of fear? Was it out of and what's really wild to me, and maybe we can say this now that we're in our 40s, right? And getting in our 40s, is how much insecurity I felt that built for me at that time, right? That built a level of insecurity that I feel like we still come back with, right? And then coming back to now that I can label something as, well, it's insecurity on a lot of levels, but you said code switching, right? And we talk about code switching a lot. We talk about living in the double bind a lot, right? And you mentioned this in podcasts I listened to before. And I can only label that now. I didn't know what I was doing back then. I don't know about you. Like
you were just
I was
surviving.
not aware.
You were
I had
surviving.
no idea.
You were surviving. Yeah, man. It's like, you know, when they come to the Rastaman in the jungle and they're like, hey, you're the Rastaman who lives in the jungle. He's like, no, I'm just the dude that lives right here. I don't know what you're talking about. And they're just like, oh my God, we just lived it. We just experienced it. And I can't explain to you, like when you said that imbued a sense of insecurity or a sense of having to, homie, that was like my truth. That was my truth. I was always trying to survive. And now that I have kids, you're just like, oh my God, the layers of this are just so deep, dog. They're so deep.
So deep.
So deep.
We're unpacking a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Can I just ask? Well, the other crazy thing that I have no idea how long this has been going because I'm literally just.
I'm loving it. I don't care, man. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
How do two Egyptian kids end up marrying two Egyptian women? How did that, like, you see there's nothing that's not the same. It's crazy. It's not a single thing.
I'm looking at a mirror. I'm looking in a mirror right now, right?
Yeah,
like I'm looking
amazing.
in a mirror, and it's a beautiful thing, right? Because this is what if we wrote things on paper, there'd be a lot of things we could say differently. But we're looking in a mirror right now because I'm seeing myself, you know.
It's amazing, dog. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So how did you meet?
Yeah.
How did you meet an Egyptian girl?
I'm gonna ask you the
now
same
a
question.
Brilliant professor.
She's brilliant, bro, and that's how we're connected, right? You guys are both rocking your PhDs over at Chapman, and you know, and in the same circles. And what's a trip to me, and again, I'll get to with the end in mind of how did we marry Egyptian women. I didn't date almost any Egyptian women before. I don't know about you, bro. If we're talking about the same thing, you know,
not one, homie. Not one, homie.
Same.
Not one. You know why? Because I'm not playing with fire, dog. You about to get me.
That's
about to get me fucking. Yeah, I don't know. And so many Egyptian women are gonna kill me for saying this right now. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
But it's good. We're being honest. We're being honest.
We're allowed to tell our truths, right? This is what this is about, right? At this point, but I did not. There was a lot of like, hey, you should hook up with her, and like mom and tant, but like, you know, there was arrangements and go see this, and look, we're talking to Nicole and Christine at school. We're like, what's going on? Like, especially in the circles that I was in, playing water polo and basketball, you know, all these things that we know, right? Like, and so it's really wild that I ever thought in my mind I would marry an Egyptian woman, let alone have kids and raise a family and do it all in an Orthodox, you know, with another Orthodox Christian woman. So really, it's the same immigrant story that we're talking about. Our families immigrated to the States about the same time, right? So we immigrate to the States around the same time. Our parents become friends, right? So I've known Anna and her family since she was a baby, right? I'm 5 years older than her, right?
Beautiful.
And
you're joking.
Each other.
I'm 5 years older than my wife. This is scary shit, dog. I'm 5 years. Yeah, a lot of Aussie. I'm 5 years older than my wife. That's so crazy. Okay, but there's still this sense of like, I found there's almost like different modalities of the second generation immigrant identity. And we kind of find our pairs, like Yasmin and I are the same kind of second generation Egyptian kid from Southern California, right? There are many other kinds of, right? Like all the kids that I grew up around that were just like, what's wrong with you? You have an identity crisis. We're white. And I'm like, I have a motherfucking identity crisis. That's mine. I'm sorry. Right. And it wasn't until Barack Obama when these people realized that they're people of color, even let alone that they might be black.
Right. That's a whole other story. Yeah.
It's a whole other story. But even that story, it's such an important story that the ability of, like, I really feel Egyptian men have a unique import on race in America as raised in America, because the way our identity is socially constructed only based on the skin tone of your color is mind-blowing, dog. Is like, my dad is really dark, my mom is really light, And my mom is never going to be pushed away from a nursing home or a home healthcare facility. My dad all day. Not now in 2020, but like in the early times. Why? Simply because of the color of his skin. So I feel like Egyptian men in America, we have a unique understanding of the spectrum of blackness. The fact that the slave experience is one component of the spectrum of blackness. And this attempt at kind of chopping it up is a product of white supremacy. I mean, it really is. Without the need, like, we're not trying to dismiss the differences of the experiences, but we're saying that the richness of blackness, the richness of Africanness is aided when we interpret it with the experience of the Egyptian American male. I really feel like there's something unique about our experience that speaks to that.
Yeah, for sure.
Man.
For sure.
This is mind-blowing, dog. So what's it like, so you now, again, I am not in any way surprised because this is how I grew up, but you are now professionally, you represent America. You don't represent Egypt. You represent America. You represent developing America's future. You represent like helping America's like most talented youth. My assumption is in your mind, there's absolutely no dissonance about that. But could you speak to that a little bit? Like,
Man, I got a lot to unpack, brother, because what you just described about our view of race as Egyptian men in America is profound. And that could be another 2 hours of conversation, what that's like in the lens of what we're in. That's a sinkhole we could go down. And to answer your question about, there is some dissonance. And you know when that dissonance has really revealed itself the most is the last 6 months, right? Is post George Floyd, right? Because I think, and this is why when I listen to your podcast, your post George Floyd murder podcast, I've listened to it 3 times now because I was listening to you were articulating what I was feeling and I couldn't say, right? What I couldn't say because we experienced what happened that night. I could hear how personal that was for you. And how I felt how personal that what happened was to me, but without the comfort of turning to our family and them understanding that experience.
Man, this is the truth right here.
Right? That's it. You know, I didn't know where to go to, right?
Dog, no one speaks about this piece. Young Black people in America, when they go home, their parents understand the racism and viciousness that exists outside the door. When we came home, our parents told us, don't focus على الحاجات دي, focus on your work.
Yeah. إيه المشكلة؟ في مشكلة؟
What's the issue? Are you missing an ear? Go compete.
Yeah. Oh, wait till you hear. And for us, man, it was wait till you hear what the Muslims did for me back home in Egypt.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Hey, you want to talk about discrimination? You don't know. And it was, so I felt very alone. And this dissonance. So then if I can't get that comfort post George Floyd at home, if I can't get it from my culture, if my cultural identity in America is not helping me understand and to cope with the trauma and the tragedies I'm seeing before me, then I have to go somewhere else. Then I'm obsessed with my work. I'm full on in my work. But when I look around work and I look in this space of a non-traditional sport like water polo in America, that's mainly Caucasian, right? That's all white, almost all white, as a very small subsect of people of color. All of a sudden, the few of us who had already been noticing each other on pool decks for years, or always, we all had this all small pack. Something blew up after George Floyd. We're like, okay, the dissonance is real. Are we really doing this? Are we really going to make sure? This is something I've been saying, telling myself. You ask about the dissonance. Is my life's work every day going to be to make sure that the upper 1% of white people in America achieve their dreams in this sport? Can you imagine the punch in the gut that gives you, because you're thinking about all this in the background, and then this is my job. And this is no offense to the people I serve, and this is
of course not.
to the people I lead and that I give my life to, right? But there's dissonance to that, right? There's a lot of dissonance. I feel wildly patriotic when I'm wearing an Egyptian jersey tonight because I know I can, right? But what do you know what I have to wear every day, bro? What I have to wear 7 days a week, 365 for the last 10 years, right? Is American flags all over my body and USA gear, right? USA, right? USA everywhere.
Wow.
And so the dissonance the last few months has been a lot to handle, you know.
I'm sure it's no different. You know? I'm sure it's no different than a professor at Harvard Law School who has your identity, or you know, when we rise to elite circles, we have an appreciation for like the fact that we've broken a barrier that's not usually broken, but it takes a while in your career before you start thinking, okay, how can I change this reality for the future? And as you come into that portion of your career, yeah, it's heavy, dog. It's heavy. Yeah. Of course it's heavy. I mean, you can imagine how I feel. Like, you know, I'm not teaching at like Dominguez, fucking Cal State Dominguez.
Hills, yeah.
Come on, I'm teaching China University, and I have to totally be honest with you, dog. Like now that I'm teaching in peace studies and international relations, I feel like there's a freedom to be me.
Yeah.
Because these kids are coming for some international shit. When I was teaching in the College of Education, and I would say the UN or the Queen of whatever, they would all look at me like, "Hey, that's not in the fucking rubric, bro. What are you doing?"
Right.
Even on that level, dog, worked for presidents, traveled to 70 countries. And still, I need a space that allows me to freely engage like my identity as it's communicating with the reality that I'm living. But that shit is crazy. Bro, like the crew I grew up with, when they watch, like the guys, when they watch this, they're going to lose their mind. They're going to lose their absolutely lose their mind. It's like I can already see like everybody's tripping.
I love it, man. I love it but it does. There's a sense though that we need this, right? There's a sense that we need to know that we're not alone, right? Going through this, and that somehow that's where these insecurities lie. And these insecurities in our brothers, in your friends, and the homies, and the crew that we all grew up in, it manifests itself in some awful ways, right? It manifests itself in ways that really mess with our lives. And so, you know, in a lot of ways, we're very blessed because going back to two questions ago, right? When you said, how did we end up with Egyptian wives? Because we found soulmates that can validate our experiences, right? So I know when you talk to your wife, when I talk to my wife, she's someone who can validate listen, SoCal Egyptians growing up here, second generation immigrants, right? Going through all this, like we talking like, okay, I'm okay. All right. I'm going to be all right. You know?
Yeah.
Right. But otherwise there's not a lot of maybe some people in our crew, some of the boys we grew up with didn't get the same, aren't getting the same luxury, if you follow me, you know?
Even to be honest with you, even the luck of marrying a woman who can be considered a homie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like I grew up with a lot of guys that are, you know, like, I don't know if it's the same in your community, but in our community, there's like, you know, I got like I don't own them, but like we got like 150 like neurosurgeons who can't find a dude to marry. You know what I'm saying? And like they hot and they rich and they dope and they kind and there's no issue.
Right.
But the homies are like, dog, if I marry her, you know what I'm saying? That's like, I can't maintain all that. Like I'm trying to tone it down, etc. So even being lucky enough to find a woman in community that of all of the people you feel like, yeah, this is a homie. This is me and this partner. She understands my trauma and she can help me develop a vision for, because if you don't, dog, then the kids, you're just banking trauma.
Yeah. And she understands my trauma, right? Understands, because if she doesn't understand my trauma, look, my parents don't understand it, really, right? Like my family doesn't understand it. They're still, if I go to my parents' house next week, Fox News may or may not be on the TV, right? When I walk in the door, and I have to go and turn off and be like, listen, cut this shit out, right? We talk young, but this is normal. So if she doesn't understand my trauma, then I'm not alive today. Let's just be real, right? I would
100%.
Bad choices. I would have been gone somewhere else, you know.
100%, 100%. And when you sit with Egyptians, like the place where our I don't want to say our parents specifically, but like that generation comes together is on the like CC military shit. Like, I know people, dog, who are the smartest people, among the smartest people on this earth, among the kindest people on this earth. And then they'll be like, yo, human rights, animal rights. I'm not really sure what the difference is between them. We don't need any of this shit. Masra is la, 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 la. And they'll talk about like the boundaries of this nation as though it's like the body of a human being. Like there is the emotion is fucking real, dog. Like these.
I know. I feel you. I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just the ability to like, you know, you're sitting with your family. And they're not our families, but like you're sitting with your family and you're realizing like, damn, these people they kind of don't even believe in democracy, my dude. Like they don't even believe in like a fair trial or a right to be heard.
no, they give a shit. Fair trial, my ass.
Due process is if they enforce it. You know what I mean? It's like, whoa. So like I always think like, you know, I turned out all right. I'm kind of fucked up, but I turned out all right. And then I think to myself like, if I was raising my kids in an environment where we're throwing the shib and you know what I mean? Like,
oh man, bro.
There's no way these kids, like, I don't think that these kids could survive that vibe, especially when I see the pictures of your kids, because I too am just one and my brother. So whenever I see them, I'm like, dude, just like us. It's hilarious.
Awesome. And they're blessed enough not to be called haywanet, and they're blessed enough to be not, and they're not, they're not getting the shib in the face, and they're not getting the broomstick broke on their back. You know what I mean? And we can keep, but we turned out all right? You know, like, but there's that dissonance that you describe professionally, we also have in our home lives as fathers, and you know what I mean, as modern fathers. I'm still curious how you deal. Because I don't know how I deal with it. You asked me about the dissonance professionally I deal with, but I'm talking to a man who worked in the White House. I'm talking to a man who worked for a U.S. president. I'm talking to the JD PhD who's done all these things for USA. How did you? I have to ask you, like, how with our identities and our cultural identities and our upbringings, how did you navigate that? How did you deal with it? You know, like being on the forefront of the USA, you know what I mean? On the forefront of the lines, even in politics today, you know? I have always, again, like because of the code switching and because of the need for survival, and because I came on the scene, like I didn't really start doing national TV until after 9/11. I have always been very comfortable only being American. Like forget that American Muslim, Egyptian American, Egyptian Muslim, Egyptian fucking Downey, 30% perceived Mexican, 70% perceived whatever. Of all of those things, it was always easiest for me to just drop everything and be an American because I was good at that shit. I was a basketball star. People liked me. My English, it's my first language. I mean, it's my natural, right? Like I'm not trying, dog. Like I'm not trying. Right. You know how like when people learn Arabic as a second language and they're trying to drop yanis in the wrong place, you know what I mean? And you're just like, that's not how you use that one. Yeah. You never had that problem. So when I tried to be Egyptian, my Arabic was broken. I didn't understand what was going on culturally. When you try to be Mr. Super Duper Muslim, it's like, come on, bro, let's be real. Like I'm not a super duper, bro. Like I'm just a normal dude. Like, I love God and whatever, but I'm not trying to become like the next priest of Islam. But to be American was very natural for me. And I accepted an appointment from George W. Bush the first time around. And my life just happened to push me towards Gallup, and I stopped the security clearance process. But I've always been somebody that's down for the cause. I mean, this is, I still fall prey to the ideas of American exceptionalism. I still believe that this is different. And I know that a lot of the people that listen or read or whatever abroad think that's a crazy thing to say as America is falling apart and the president is in quarantine. But I have always believed in America's exceptionalism, and I've always kind of tried to adopt that exceptionalism into my own identity. It's like I see being American as
you know, like a superpower that I've been blessed to have. Because I mean, I know my cousins. We talk on WhatsApp. I call them. I lived with them in middle school. I mean, I know what I was gonna be if my mom and dad didn't come here. I know.
Yeah.
It's not this. And you're talking to somebody who's struggling and not making a lot of money right now and whatever. And I'm telling you, dog, like this is, you know, this is the motherfucking lottery right here. My mom and dad gave me and my brother a lottery ticket. Has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do, but like, come on, dog.
Yeah.
So my ability to just kind of like, you know, just slide right into it. And it was a time where like, you know, when 9/11 happened, my third week of law school, I straight up thought there was going to be camps and there was going to be martial law. Yeah. And I was in Lexington, Virginia, dog. I was not in Southern California.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like to go from that to having, you know, a security clearance and representing the country around the world, every day I felt like this is the greatest honor of my life. And if Trump wouldn't have won, I would have stayed. I'd still be there. So it's, you know, it's yes, there is a lot of dissonance for me today. The dissonance is within Islam. It's not between my Egyptian identity and my American identity. The dissonance really is within Islam. It's like I've been studying Islam for so long, and I've developed such a kind of what I feel is a well-read critique and attempt at reform. And the dissonance that really, really still is so hard is when I see some fucking white convert imam kind of being a little bit skittish about condemning sex slavery. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm just like, yo, I'm about to eat you alive. That's where that's the shit that like really gets to me, because I feel like, you know, we've lost the beauty that existed, and we just gotta be about, at the end of this whole road, I feel like we gotta be about beauty, and we gotta be against ugliness. And that shit, man, like 20 years ago, I would have used a lot of other words and a lot of fuck all that. We gotta be about beauty and constructing, and be against ugliness and destruction. And I just try to keep that, like, if that's my aim, then it's you know, it's all kosher, and God is merciful.
Yeah. Hey, he definitely is, brother. He definitely is.
Because I wouldn't be here if he wasn't that.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't.
Amazing.
There's truth. There's so much truth to that, man. And you did it again. You articulated something I could never say. I've bought into USA. I bought into US exceptionalism as well.
Yeah.
I bought hook, line, and sinker, brother. When I wear USA on my chest and I get to go represent the country, or they sing the national anthems playing after we win a medal or something, man, I'm like
totally clear.
I'm in.
100%.
I'm in.
100%. And that's why, and this is actually a really good place to and that's why Trump really, I feel like the lived experience I've had has been a beautiful insight into the greatness of this American project.
Yeah.
And like my dad was saying the other day, Ananahena, for 40 years, you take 60% of all of my money for 40 years. Wafil akhir tidini Donald Trump. It's like, are you guys serious, dog? Like, what kind of a deal is this shit? And it's true. It's like, you know, a big part of me feels like, no, dog, you can't break this. You don't understand. This is different. This is different. It's not better. It doesn't need to overwhelm or imperial or colonize, but this is different, bro. And you're fucking it up, bro. And you're hitting it exactly at the places where it is qualitatively different than the alternative options.
Wow.
And that really is where my, like, how can we go from that to this? And then what does that say about where we're going? And it's hard, dog, raising kids. Like, I'm screaming pendejo at the television, and my daughter is sitting right there. And somebody else will tell you, oh no, you need to shield them from. It's like, no, habibi. She realized she had curly hair when she was 2.5, homie.
Yeah.
كمل ختم الآخر. She too is going to be on a struggle for her identity. Let's say, let's get started on a moving walkway.
Yeah. You're right. She's on a moving walkway, but she's got the support, and she's got the love, and she's got the vision of where it's going to end up, brother. And that's the difference. Not that we lost our way, because we're clearly brother. We're thriving, right? We're thriving in this different place.
Amen.
Like
Amen. This crazy dog. It's crazy. This has been a healing for me. Like, what an awesome conversation. This is literally our first conversation. And I can't wait for more, man. And I can't wait for the pandemic to be over, for the families to get together and we break bread and just be family, man, because that's what we are.
Yeah, no doubt, brother. Healing is the right word. This has been healing for me too, brother. It's been good to look in the mirror, man, and know that our shared experiences, as different as they're supposed to be, are not, right? As we come through this. It's beautiful.
Bro, shout out USA Waterpolo, dog. Everybody here needs to get them a USA Waterpolo gear, dog. I love it. I love that, dog. We got our we always flash our Megan Rapinoe jersey up here. We always keep it. We always keep it smart. My brother, I appreciate you. And I appreciate the time you've given me. It literally, we were organizing, and then as soon as you said, you know what, well, how about we after the kids go to sleep? And I was just like, bro, this guy is like, we're like the same person, dog. This is great.
Yeah, the kids are sleeping. They could hear us yelling, man. The loud fathers,
Bro, we are Egyptians. We train them on serenity in the midst of high volume. That's how we do it, dog. My kids don't trip, dude. Like everybody else's kids, will be at a store and like somebody will drop a plate and all the kids. My kids would just be like, "Hati abni shish, I abni ragil is going losing his mind again." Hati shish. You know what? The next time we talk, I gotta tell you about when I moved to Qatar and how I went from like being an American to being an Egyptian again. And they treat you like my wife's salary was capped because Egyptians are not allowed to make more than this amount of money per household. So then I went from being like this American that went to an American law school, whatever, and then I go to Qatar. I'm working for the Queen, and I'm stuck in a caste.
Wow.
Because my name is Ahmed Samir Yunus. Yeah. So that we gotta hit that the next time we talk.
There's a lot of stories, but there's so many stories and so much the experience of where we're at. You said it, there's a very unique lens that we have as on all of this, of the human experience, the cultural experience as Egyptian men who've migrated to America. There's a lot to it, brother. But this is the first. This is the first, but not the last.
Akid, absolutely. Yeah. Give my love to the wife and to the kids, and I pray that all the generations are blessed, man, back home and here, and we keep the love going.
Yeah, same here, brother. Send my love their way as well.
Thanks, dog.
Thanks, brother.
Much love, Pasadena. One time. Peace.